several of the people, especially in Boone County politics, have been women. Karen Miller has been really influential, and of course Wendy Noren I got to work with for 4 or 5 years when I was in the Secretary of State's office, and she really served as a good mentor for me. So she's my inspiration for running for county clerk, and offered a lot of advice and wisdom as I was beginning the process. I think elections is fundamentally a customer-oriented service, and so when we're talking about trying to work within the budget that we have and the constraints that we have from the commission, some of those things may include shuffling around what you're doing in elections administration. If that includes polling places, I think it's really important to have a holistic view of how polling places are chosen. So that would include how voters are impacted by whatever the closures are. If the people that normally go to a polling place have a hard time finding transportation, or if they're historically disenfranchised, those are all things to take into consideration when you're making decisions on polling places. So that's something that I would definitely prioritize. I think certainly regarding polling place decisions, my priorities would have differed in terms of closing Paquin and Oak, because both of those locations as polling places in April affected voters that have been historically disenfranchised, people with disabilities, people that have low income, people that are not readily, that can't readily available they can't readily access transportation. And those are all hallmarks of making sure that we have places where voting is accessible to them. So making sure that those polling places stay open is something that I care very deeply about. Sure. Regarding photo ID or voter ID when you go to the polling place, in the time that I was in the Secretary of State's office, I was the coordinator of the Elections Integrity Unit, which means I saw every complaint of voter fraud that came through the office. And not a single one of those complaints, and not a single one of the substantiated complaints that we had, would have been impacted by photo ID. So I don't think that it solves a problem that we have. I don't think that we have a photo ID or voter impersonation problem, which is the only type of problem that photo ID could solve. So at this point, I'm not in favor of enacting that. The law that we do have is not a strict photo ID, and does allow for a number of different IDs to be used.